Hello and welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. I'm Roshan Cariappa. My guest today is Anirudh Singla, founder and CEO of Pepper Content. Anirudh started Pepper right out of college in BITS Pilani and has scaled the business to over $5 million in revenue. They're a content marketplace that connects businesses with creative professionals. And they recently raised Series A funding of $4.2 million from Lightspeed India. In this conversation, Anirudh speaks about productizing delivery, the various nuances of scaling a managed marketplace, and how the creator economy is changing things. It's hard to think Anirudh is just 23 because he's such a deep thinker. He's so deliberate about their execution. And I really enjoyed this conversation, as I'm sure you will too. So let's get into this episode of the Startup Operator Podcast with Anirudh Singla. Hey, Anirudh, welcome to the Startup Operator Podcast. Thank you so much for making the time.
Hey, Roshan, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Very excited to be catching up with you.
Yeah, man, good to have you. Long pending chat. Now, you are one of those young achievers who puts people's lives in perspective, right? Most people would be happy to graduate from college with a degree or maybe a job, but you graduated with a business, right? That was doing a crore or something in revenue. And I've heard about the genesis on multiple podcasts and I've heard you talk about it, but it's such a fascinating story. I'd love for you to tell that story to the audience on how you started up again.
Sure, certainly. I sometimes just keep rethinking, reevaluating how many different versions of this story is, and it's always nice to talk about it again and again. I come from a traditional Banya family. My dad's been into business, seen him build a very large business from scratch. He's a first generation entrepreneur. So I was very enterprising from the very start. Wanted to do something of my own always. So I knew I had to get there somehow. And I worked hard to get into BITS Pilani, and going into colleges like these, you find there's 900 people who are equally smart or smarter than you. And you're trying to figure out this one good thing you're at that other 900 people aren't. And the only thing that came up for me was I could write well. That's probably it. That translated from my love for reading. And, my grades tanked after my first semester of college. I realized, yaar, ab McKinsey consultant to ban nahi sakte. So what will it take? And I started, reaching out to a lot of these media houses for interning there. TOI, Scoopoo, HT, Your Story. I remember Your Story. I cold mailed those guys, I don't know, like 25, 30 times. They got so frustrated. They finally said, okay, you come to Bangalore. And that's the first time I got to the land of startups, as you say. And 2017 summer, exciting time in life. I was trying to figure out a way to finance my own education at BITS. Target tha to earning 2.5 lakhs in 2 months, period. How you do it is something I had to figure out. And I was, figuring out how to go about it. And then I started freelancing for all these US-based platforms. So there's a lot of gig marketplace platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, Chegg, that are out there where you can freelance and earn. So what I used to do was I used to wake up at 5 in the morning, freelance till 9 a.m., go to Your Story from 9 to 5, and then freelance again from 6 to 12. And did this for 18, 19 hours regularly, 2 months. Learned two things: consistency compounds, persistence compounds. And, as a country, there's just so much talent, but there's no talent marketplace per se. There's, lack of talent marketplace construct that gives opportunities across different segments. And, being in the content space, especially realized that I think if you look at talent revolutions that happened in India after TCS Infosys that did that in tech for India, from India to the world, there's been no real talent revolution as such, if you really like to think of it. And that's where I realized that, there's a large space in the creative marketing space to go about doing that. I think there's a lot of good talent. It just needs the right opportunities. So why not build a two-sided managed marketplace for content creators? That's what we got going. Obviously, the clarity with which I can talk to you about it right now is in hindsight. But at that time, it was a lot of fascination about wanting to do something of your own and, just being good at it. I remember my dad telling me कि ये क्या journalist वाले काम कर रहा है. And, obviously he came from a business world, so he didn't really understand it as much. I think the first time he took me seriously was when Your Story published an article on us from 24th August 2018. I remember, that's when we were starting to scale up a bit. So yeah, I got to college, excited, a good few friends, started this together. And it's been about 4.5 years since. It's been a very enriching learning journey, humbling journey. and just so excited about what's coming next. Grown really fast. We'll soon touch 100 people this
Amazing.
month. So yeah, that way I think it's been a very exciting journey for us at Pepper.
Fantastic. So as I was telling you, I was a freelancer as well for many years. I wrote content. I did a bunch of random things, right?
Yeah.
And I had a content consulting business in 2012, right? But looking back, I think I was bad at many things. I mean, I couldn't manage people, processes, etc. But I think the central reason why I couldn't scale was because I didn't figure how to productize the offering. And I think that's something that you've done amazingly well with Pepper, right? So how do you think about consciously productizing this offering?
But so very simple story around that. See, while I'm an engineer by degree, nothing I'm very proud about also, but I am a non-tech founder, right? So it was a struggle looking at being able to, build tech or think about tech like a lot of, founders do these days. And every step or every thought process we did, and again, all these terminologies that I'm using are now in hindsight because I know what they mean today, but probably at that time I didn't, was everything led through first principle thinking, which is I don't come from this industry. There's no mental baggage. I didn't even know what an agency meant at that point of time, right? Or what services business meant, or scalable, venture fundable businesses. None of that was in our mindset. Point was business model tha. It was a simple solution in our mind. It wasn't very complex. And I think the more simpler it is at the start, the better it is, right? It's easier to go about inventing or reinventing the wheel. And that's where for us the perspective was, okay, what are the minimum viable steps to execute a business like this? Sometimes people are too much into MVP banate hai, or let's create a product, or let's create a wireframe. Nowadays you can do 10 other things. I love doing Whimsical and Figma. They make me look smarter or make me feel smarter. But at that time perspective was that let's build a operational model which by first principles is scalable in nature. So it was something as simple as customer ordering content, telling us, we find the right freelancer, we give it to them, then getting back, we doing a review layer and giving it back to the customer. So the customer has a managed experience and the creator also has in some sense a managed experience. This was the idea in its rawest form, like in the most simple to easy to understand form. And we did this business on Google Sheets and Google Mail. Very less known fact, and don't hold me to this fact because of the exact number, but Google Sheets can't handle more than 2 or 4 MB of data. And the reason why I know that is we were operating Google Sheets at over 95,000 line items.
Good God.
We had automated the fuck out of Google Sheets. Almost each and every workflow structure. My co-founder Rishabh had to upskill in Excel to be able to drive a lot of those things. And we had reached that limit. And that's when we started thinking, okay, what if this goes 100x from here? How will we do this? Google Sheets to nahi kar sakte. And that's where, we realized, okay, now we need the product. And the best part I feel about the business that we're running today, right, is because we had done that for 2 years, we probably earned, I think, about 1.752 crores till date since inception that time back then. What we realized is we exactly knew what to productize. We knew what is the human part, what is the product driven part, matchmaking kaise hoga, how do you create this into a scalable review quality system, how do you drive automated tools, what interaction can be touched upon, and so on. So that plan or that product thinking was just so raw and clear and finished after having probably done 100,000 content pieces till date. That time just gave us that clarity very right. And I think that's been the fundamental genesis of what we've built. And I think what personally I feel we really do well, which is operational scalability is a moat at Pepper. Like, you'd be surprised to know we're soon touching 100 people. Managed marketplaces are the most ops heavy businesses. Out of a team of 100 now, we just have probably a 5 to 7 member operations team or category team. That's it, right? We've productized it so well, right, that come 100x, come 1000x, we won't flinch.
Amazing. I mean, that's such an important lesson, right? I can almost draw parallels with Dunzo, for example. When Dunzo started out, I mean, it was, 2014-15 was the time when people built an app for just about anything, right? App for parking, app for this, app for that. And when Dunzo started out, I mean, the service was through WhatsApp and for a good amount of time, right? And they were really able to hone in on the key value proposition of their product and everything, and then build an app, right? So, but having said that, I mean, there has been an Odesk or an Elance and a Fiverr and plenty of these folks, right? And I've been both on both sides of the table, right? I've been a creator and I've been also a consumer as well. And one thing I realized is that managing quality and managing delivery is very, very tough. And also as a creator, I mean, you might not have as much skin in the game, right? I mean, if you get a good client, you'll probably take them one-on-one afterwards, right? So how do you solve all of these classical marketplace problems?
Yeah. See, I think that's also the construct of how we've designed the marketplace, which is it's a managed marketplace where the curation of supply and the matchmaking and the benchmarking around data points you're collecting around delivery timelines, very small things like in our matchmaking systems, it's a smart recommender system, almost like an Uber or an Ola, where we know a reasonable intent of a creator to accept or reject an assignment or pass on an assignment. We know their responsive rates, we know their quality scores, we know their grammar scores, plagiarism scores, readability scores, time to create scores, when are they available, what's their intent on being part of Pepper. Is it very integral to their income? Is it not that integral to their income? So we know a lot of these parameters, these small aspects that over time we've fortified to drive or become modes to the business in how we operate it, right? Everything from the quality of supply and our benchmarking across how we onboard them to even something as simple as an experience of understanding and reading a brief, which is a very looks simple but very complex part, right? People say content subjective, right? Understand. But the most subjective thing also has most number of objectivities you can map up. Like, so in my sense, in my head, while I know it is subjective, but it is also most objectively parameterized or can be objectively parameterized, right? And that's how we are looking at going about solving for expectation setting, solving for quality, solving for speed, and solving for scale. Point is, can you standardize expectation setting? Right, you do that as a business. I was speaking to Harish Chawla once, who was earlier CEO of News 18, and we were discussing about our business, and he was like, yeah, Anirudh, there is Indian accent, which is like the Michelin in Delhi, right? One of the best restaurants, and there's only one Indian accent in India, probably, right? And there is 100 barbecue nation chains. If Indian accent were to create 10 other Indian accent branches, you won't go to Indian accent for that, right? वो taste dilute हो जाएगा, वो quality of experience dilute हो जाएगा, because Indian accent has like a 7 course meal. Each part is designed in a very interesting manner, in a very concentrated manner to get you going. So, and the second part is a barbecue nation experience. 700 rupees, go anywhere across the country, there's the same formula. There's a standardized experience, right? You know what you're signing up for. You're going to eat 70% snacks. You'll get your tummy filled that time. You won't end up consuming a lot of dinner. You'll take dessert, and you'll do that experience again and again. So the difference between an Indian accent and a barbecue nation is standardization of experience, and that's what drives scale. So today, barbecue nation can do 1000x scale, but Indian accent can't. And that's where, very early on, we realize, are we in the creative business or are we in the business of creative, right? Very, very unique insight, very important insight, right? So barbecue nation analogy is what we are trying to go towards and look to scale. Because if we are purely in the creative business, then I am buying in for probably a Grammy or any of these awards, but I'm not doing that, right? For me, the perspective is, can I create a standardized experience at scale, high quality, standardized experience at scale? What will it take? And when you start thinking like that with that much clarity, right, that perspective towards things, building the company, org design, philosophy, culture, I think everything simplifies. And in my mind today, scaling Pepper is as simple as a linear equation. Like, I have that much clarity, right? And if someone has that much clarity, I think then I think just getting to that clarity is important. And if you can do that right, I think that's great.
But it's also a very, very hard problem, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
I think, I mean, with any of these creator platforms, I mean, you have the classic power law distribution of the people who make the most amount of money. I mean, about 5-10% of the people will probably be better than the rest 90% of them, and will also end up making more of the money, right? But at the same time, as you scale and get more clients, obviously, I mean, these 10% of the people can't service all of those clients, so you will have to find more skilled people, and you have to keep growing the talent base, which is
Yeah.
again a phenomenally hard problem to solve.
Not if you do platform design really well, right?
Yeah,
Your
can you
assumption,
explain that a little bit? Yeah.
yeah, sure. So your entire thesis is assuming there's a base assumption model you have in your mind of what a marketplace involves, right? Classic Pareto, this or tending to Pareto, and all of those thinkings. That happens when you think of a platform design. So this org design, this is a platform design or product design concept. I'm not using product because it gives different sense. Point is the network design. So Nirmit from Apna uses a very interesting terminology called network math in his case, which is how he designs a network that allows, or that probably allowed Apna to scale crazily in an industry where there was a lot of roadkill. So that was how he mapped out a network math or a network design around how he built it, right? And in my mind, it is platform design and basically platform math, which basically means how is the model constructed that does not allow things like this to happen. So in Pepper's case, 45% of the top creators earn 55% earnings. Right now, that's not Patreon, that's not Gumroad, that's not Teachable, that's not Fiverr, that's not Upwork. Because my distribution models allow for equitable work distribution. I'd rather not have 100 people earn 30,000 per month from me and be overtly dependent on me. I'd rather probably have 1,000 people earn 15 or 20,000 per month from me, and over time, my aim would be to grow that and scale that, right? So that's how we've also went about platform design, making strong product choices, and so on. So I think everything's built upon that structure. Obviously, see, it's not an easy problem to solve either way, right? It's a services heavy industry. You're trying to do behavioral change, but who says category creation is easy? I think that's the part, right? Before Ola came in, early years of Ola, 1-2 years, they thought of as a taxi agency, like taxi agency, tech-enabled taxi agency. Today, you don't think of them that way, right? It's completely different perspective in how you think about their positioning in your mind, or in how, or what fundamentally is a category they've created. And I think that's what we are doing with Pepper, where over the next 10 years, I think when I say every company is a content company, if content's X today, in the next 10 years is going to be 100X. And what surprises me the most is, like, there's a Salesforce for sales, there's a HubSpot for inbound marketing. There's nothing for content marketing out there today. And that's a white space we're attacking, right? Which is large industry, huge scale, very underappreciated, and huge potential. So I think the next talent revolution that's going to come from India is going to be something like a Pepper.
So I'm going to take a small deviation and ask you about how you think about these things, because when you speak, right, I mean, you're clearly extrapolating yourself a little away from the problem and looking at it. You're thinking about the business and the model, because otherwise, most people, they tend to think about executional problems. Product kaise karna hai, marketing kya karna hai, right? Or sales kaise karte hai, right? I mean, these are executional problems, but I mean, you seem to have a perspective on the business itself. So how have you sort of forced yourself to think about that, while you do all of your calls and meetings on a daily basis?
Yeah. No, I think it's to do with, see, this founder maturity as a concept. It's been 4.5 years since we're building Pepper. One thing I've been fortunate enough to get in life is, some excellent people who've been able to mentor us, help us grow, great investors on board, who give you that perspective. See, when you're living, breathing your startup, right, you're too inside it. And you need to realize every company has a stage. We grew from $500,000 ARR to 5 million ARR in 1 year, right? And we're now looking to do a 5 to 25, $30 million journey over the next 1 year, right? And when you're looking to grow that fast and grow that scale, right, you need to fundamentally analyze and understand what got you here won't get you there. Very important. And that's where what I realized is the level of involvement I had in my business on running day to day versus me being able to look out and at least understand what macro things are there, right, is extremely important. Because if I don't do that right, a very interesting good example, and I heard this in a good podcast, Ritesh Agarwal from Oyo is one of the people I really look up to. So there's a conversation where Bejul from Lightspeed and Ritesh were catching up, and Ritesh loved customer experience and in the early days of Oyo. So Ritesh was very excitedly telling Bejol that, Bejol, I love it when I get to speak to customers. I am on customer call duty every single day, right? I'm speaking to customers 8 to 10 hours. The insights are just so wonderful. And Bejol observes Ritesh and then he says, excellent. Then we found our chief customer officer for Oyo. Let's go find a new CEO then, right? And that's when Ritesh realizes, oh, I understand where you're coming from, and then he gets it right. That point is, if I'm too invested in marketing, I'll be a great CMO, or I'll be a great marketing leader, or I'll be a great salesperson, right? But that's not my job. My job is to get the best people who know their stuff very well and align them with that perspective, with that vision, right? So for me right now, the goal is as simple as I validated the market is huge. The opportunity is clear. There's a good pathway on what we need to do to how to scale the company. And I know there's a lot of unanswered questions as well. And I know I can't solve them today at once, which means the only way I can make this easier for myself is get into a room of 10 to 15 very high quality, smart people and figure this out together. Right? That's my easiest solution to go about it. And that's what I'm investing my time in. So for me, I treat hiring as sales. So I loved sales. I was a Salesforce founder. Now I look at hiring as sales. Like I can tell you, you put 10 best recruiters in front of me. I can speak their language. So if you were to ask me, Anirudh, if you're not a founder, what would you be doing? I'd say I'd do recruitment because honestly, I love the job, right? I love speaking to people, learning from there and so on. So you won't believe there's this interesting tool which I posted on Twitter also. I don't think I posted on Twitter, but basically it shows you the number of meetings and number of people you met in a year, right? Some bits insider made this. Good guys. And last year I met 2,500 people.
Good God.
Right. And out of those 2,500 people, I'm sure I think 1,800, 1,900 would have been interviews across building the team. And, while we're speaking with such great, excellent people, just the fact that, got to learn from their perspective on how they do go about org design, building these things and so on, right? Just gave me that lens and clarity real way, way right. So now for me, it's like I said, the good part about having this feeling or being confident about this is if you can think in a linear equation. Like, can you today think of your business in a linear equation play? And what I realize is most founders, including me earlier, right? People tend to overcomplicate things a lot by adding too many variables and so on. And honestly, when you look back and you see it's not too complicated. And especially at our stage, and obviously, see, this is again sector specific, thought process. It's not what I'm saying will work for a person who's just starting their company. It might they need to be more tactical than strategic immediate. I think in my case, I know that there's only 2 to 3 orbit shift moments for me to grow from where I am to where I want to be next year. And I need to focus everything in my life to figure out what those 2 to 3 moments are going to be, right? For me to be able to continue scaling at the trajectory that we are looking to be at. So I think that's very important. And that's what my pursuit is right now, which is find the right people and find those right 2 to 3 orbit shift moments and just get them cracking. And I think once you do that, I think life is simpler.
That's amazing. How old are you again?
I am turning 23 this year. I just look this month actually. I just look older. That's it.
No, I was just kidding. But I mean, that's pretty remarkable. I think, the sooner people get out of operational constraints and they start looking at the business more holistically and in perspective with the market itself, I think it's better, I mean, because I think the job of a founder is to look ahead, really, not solve the problems of today, but really estimate, where the business will be a year, 2 years, maybe 5 years from now, right? So, let's get back to marketplaces. I mean, the current evolution of marketplaces, right? We're seeing that, and I've spoken to, folks from Zetwork, Off Business, and all of these these kind of models, right? Business models. And these marketplaces, layer in SaaS, layer in services like financing, for example, and so on, right? And as you're adding these layers, right, that linear equation can get a little more complicated, right? So I wonder, I mean, with you, for example, you guys have Pepper Type, right, which basically helps your creators, create content and so on. So how do you balance these various aspects of the business? At one end, you're doing a managed marketplace. At the other end, you're, doing a SaaS tool and maybe some other services and so on. So how do you think about that?
So, First answer to that is know what you are. And in our case, we are a managed market. Everything else we do around the same is to drive scale to the business. Right. So fundamentally, while we're a managed marketplace, we're now building SaaS that allows it to complement the marketplace and help it grow faster. So in simpler terms, we are building a SaaS enabled marketplace, right? Which now, and when you talk about evolution of marketplaces, right? So it starts from, and there's an interesting article I'll send you sometime, which talks a lot about how there's open marketplaces, then there's lightly managed marketplaces, then there is managed, then there's heavily managed marketplace, and then there's vertically integrated marketplaces. Oyo is a vertically integrated marketplace, right? That it has come at a point where apart from just being a marketplace, it's built something of its own.
They also own the
Right?
supply, yeah.
Zetwork is a heavily managed marketplace. Pepper is between managed and heavily managed. So depending on these different scales and things, right, you build other models that can allow you to scale. Now, as a business, what are two fundamentals you really need, right? You need your acquisition channel, right? And you need your retention channel in place, right? If these two things are aligned, your business will keep growing or it'll remain same, right? If you're able to get this aligned. In my case, what we strongly feel about is software or SaaS compounds and drives huge scale to the market. So software drives user acquisition as well as at the long term also act as a product retention mode.
Yeah, I would have actually guessed that it's more of a retention tool actually.
Both.
Yeah.
So PepperType today has 150,000 users globally. 95% base is global. We monetized it as standalone SaaS. We went from $0 to $850,000 ARR in 6 months. And PepperType team today is just 2-3 people. In fact, if there's a listener who is looking to be part of the team, please DM me or reach out. Subtle plug. But perspective is, you'd be surprised, out of those 150,000 users, 10,000 of them are organizations. 400 of them are enterprises above 10,000 people. There's someone from Uber, Walmart, Starbucks, Macy's, L'Oreal, P&G. In the US, senior leaders, they're using something like a PepperType. Like, in a sense, I'm literally cracking bottoms up enterprise sales motion for me that I never thought I'll be able to do, right? And I think that's the beauty of managed marketplaces, which is like, I personally love marketplaces. Like I'm probably going to write a paper on them soon. Read a lot of things about this. And, you know, the beauty of managed marketplaces is the number of directions you can go from. Like you'd have seen ClearTax started off as a marketplace, more consumer marketplace, moved towards SaaS now. Zetworks trying to do some SaaS. Of business is obviously a different story. So all in all, you'll see marketplaces evolution can diversify a lot. And more often than not, if you look very closely at it, you'll realize it's because of 2-3 key metrics they're chasing. Like if off business does not have financing, it'll be difficult to build the large impact that it has been able to build. If something like Pepper does not allude to SaaS, it'll largely be a services play only, right? So which basically means is a lot of key fundamentals that each business is trying to tackle as they go about building the next leg of what that additional component is going to be. And in our case, the beauty of it is SaaS plus marketplace makes my business 10x more powerful together. They reinforce each other very well. And that's key intent on why we're looking to do it the way we're looking to.
So what is that one NorthStar metric that all teams at Pepper chase?
We chase revenue.
Okay, maybe like back up a little bit and give me a proxy for that revenue, you know? I mean,
so basically for us it is, or I'd rather define it as, we're now chasing quality revenue, which is, you know, more recurring in nature, more predictable, longer term contracts, certain case more enterprise as we look to go about it. So for us, our measure of where we are at as a company is largely revenue. And then there's obviously a lot of other L1 metrics and other things like quality, NPS on customer creator side. Creator side, there's things like creator earnings, average creator earning per month. Customer side, there's NRR, gross retention, and platform adoption. So there's a lot of metrics that you can build out, but if you were to ask me one, that's revenue for us.
Right. And when you work with like different enterprises, right? I mean, content needs can vary, obviously, right? And you know, and obviously, I mean, different capabilities on the creator side as well. How do you create that? You know, I guess I'd like to say, how do you create that predictability that, you know, I mean, I submit some gig, I submit a requirement today to, you know, Pepper, I get the same kind of quality like, you know, 3 months from now or maybe 3 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And how do you build that trust in that model, and at the
Yes.
same time, how do you build trust at the other end from a creator perspective also, that he or she will get good quality work on a weekly or a monthly basis?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly what we're trying to figure out and solve for at this point, which is when we're toying around a lot with subscription driven structures, where imagine, say, you're a great copywriter and I'm a customer, for example. Can we engage in some kind of contractual system that allows me to continuously work with you? So I can favorite you as a creator at Pepper. And that's where we feel very strongly the world's going to move towards. Ki I know for a fact if Roshan's an excellent copywriter and I might not be able to hire someone like him full time, and but I definitely want to work with someone like you. Can I engage in a subscription driven nature that allows me to keep working with you as we scale? So I think Theoremate looks great and we're doing a lot of experiments around the same. And I think that drives both predictability of quality and experience, both on the customer side and as well as the creator earning side.
Right. So what is your experience working with creators? I know, you want to drive the whole talent revolution and stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
and we hear a lot about the creator economy and stuff.
Yeah.
Your thoughts in general about working with creators?
I think creators love to create, and the more platforms are able to empower where they're able to do 85-90% just creation rather than 10 other things that they normally have to do, the better it is. The reason we made Pepper the way it is in Upwork, Fiverr, as a creator, I was just creating 35-40% of the time. Remaining time, I was chasing customers, I was giving proposals, leads, payments, quality, all that, is nonsense, honestly. And at that point, what I realized is, as a creator, and speak to any creative person, and I'm sure you're a creative person by yourself, creative people want their space, their own freedom, their autonomy to do things at their own time. Like if there is a profession in the world which is freelance by instinct, that is creative, right? Or people want that. Like any creative profession, you tell them if you can earn the same with predictable earnings on freelance versus a job, what would you do? They'll give up their jobs if that happens. I think that's what we're on to. I think we've had creators who've quit their full-time jobs to just continuously work with Pepper because of the skill we are able to help them with. It would be, and this number baffles me. I think probably next month or by March, we'd have helped freelancers earn over 20 crores of earnings since inception. Now something that's about $3 million, something that would have existed if Pepper didn't, right? And it's impacted about thousands of freelancers, right? People able to finance their own education, multiple things, right? And it's just heartwarming to see the kind of messages that come out to a lot of people, and I was just looking at LinkedIn, just shared something on our company group as well, right? There's a freelancer who earned about $1,000 this month, but the fact that that person was just so proud and confident of themselves after having earned this, right? I think if you're able to build impact like this, I think that's a talent revolution in itself. And I think companies like Pepper will continue to define scale, grow these things a lot. See, we're building a foundational company. We're here to stay for the next probably 50 to 100 years. That's the kind of company we'd want to build, right? Malab, for us, the impact is how much can it outlive something, how much can it outlive us as a business? And the best part or the beauty about this business is it can go 100 ways from here. It's not key, it's a niche key. There's only what traditional people or VC speak is TAM, right? In a sense, we have a key culture tenet in our culture deck. It's called there is no limit to our TAM. It's as big as what we can think it to be. It's actually true if you think about it. Today, creator economy, number of creators, independent businesses or businesses of one are growing like crazy. Next 10 years, content I don't see slowing down any point. Is kind of continually going to scale. I think marrying both the same, I think it's a win-win business, honestly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's probably a study around, how many of these 1% or 3% businesses are there, right? And have increased over the last like 4 or 5 years, especially because I think there's a lot of plug and play infrastructure right now on plenty things. You can basically start a business over a weekend if you want. How do you think about competition and benchmarks and stuff, right? How do you look sideways? Do you look behind? Do you look ahead? How do you get yourself to think ahead, basically? Because when you have something that's working right now, but how do you think about what next to do and the next after that and so on?
See, a simpler answer to this is a simple philosophy for business, that there should only be two kinds of companies who use pepper and companies who will use pepper, right? That's how we think about growing, scaling this business. This is a line I am copying from the Tally founder, Bharat Goenka, who says this. And it's applicable to our business, right? And I think from a competition lens, real benchmark, obviously there's a lot of talent marketplaces out there which are more horizontal, but fundamentally the other side is there's this entire agency business that has not been able to grow as fast as on the tech side or product side of things as it would want to, and so on. So I think when I think about competition, in the manner in which we're doing, at the scale at which we are thinking, and in how we want to do this, I don't think there's someone who's doing it like this yet. And I think that's where I like to say it's fundamentally category creation we're doing.
Right. And do you think about go-to-market specifically for certain countries, or I mean, is it just that, hey, I mean, it's available for everyone on the?
No, it's not general. Anyone who says it's general is probably bluffing. It needs a lot of nuance. It needs perspective. It needs you to understand user psychology on both sides, especially when it's something as complex as a marketplace. Imagine something as simple as SaaS also needs a heavy amount of figuring out go to market around sales marketing. So yeah, I think there's all kinds of levers that get impacted when you look at geography as a perspective. And that's where I think growth stage companies often what they do is they create playbooks and create a structure. And a playbook is not an answer to solving a problem. A playbook is a intelligent way of finding those answers in most cases. So one thing I really like to obsess or fascinate about is or get fascinated about is will Pepper ever in the, like next 2 to 3 years have an Airbnb or Oyo movement of its own, or Uber movement of its own, which is 1 year expanded into 100 countries. And I think happy to say Pepper type at least is used across 143 countries today already. In the marketplace business, we have users across 38 countries, but we haven't been actively pursuant in a particular market. So for us, goal is simple. How do we say probably be a company that can be out there in say 150 plus countries at scale across different levers? I think that's what excites me a lot. While obviously focus is important. So for us, then this coming year is a lot of focus on the US market as we build things out and go deeper there. But I think ours is a global business by design.
Right. And so when you say focus on the US market, you will probably try to attract creators from the US market. You'll look at like companies that are going to source material from you from the US market and so on.
Yes.
Right. At every stage of the startup journey, the founder has to evolve himself in order to enable the next level of growth, right?
Yeah.
And considering that you are someone, I mean, as I perceive that, I think you're very self-reflective, you're very thoughtful and deliberate about what you do, right? What are those 2 or 3 things that you are trying to learn and that you are trying to imbibe for you to enable that next level of growth at Pepper?
Yeah. I think I'm interpreting your question as what are things I want to get better at, right? Which is I want to get better more at, org building and being able to get the right people on the team. And more than that, being able to upskill and scale up my existing team. As founders, and this is one thing I have learned, is founders are very forward looking. It's always about, director के ऊपर VP के ऊपर SVP. There's always someone better. And वो pursuit कभी खत्म नहीं होगा. It won't pause. Like as founders, you'll always find someone better. And right, very few people invest in their own talent. Like simple question, founding team that you have, right? To any founder out there, right? Your founding team, how much time, and say if it's been 2 years into the business, how much time do you spend with them currently? Have you invested enough time to upscale them? Or have they grown enough in the company like you are growing, right? Very important fact, companies grow exponentially, but humans can only grow linear or step by step. And that's why founders, early team members, and in general people in the company who in a fast growth company have the impossible task to be able to upscale at an exponential curve, and it's not easy. So one thing I'd love to learn is how can you invest more in your talent, in your team, and get that really right. And I think all of it also starts with culture, right? Very important. Like we have a culture deck at Pepper. Like it's a codified deck we just released like a couple of months back on our 4th anniversary at Pepper. And I think that's very important, right? People need to have that clarity on what you stand for as a company, what works, what doesn't. And I think that's really important. So I think I'd love to invest more time there. I think second, obviously, international go-to markets playbooks, right? I think this is something that excites me a lot, right? Which is India to the world. What will it take, right? And that what will it take is an interesting question I want to figure out. So go-to market in some sense is something that excites me a lot. Third, personally, I think it's also a lot about meeting more and more people and keep learning, right? I think I like to think we have very less time in the world, and there's just so much to learn from so many exciting people, new people. Every day I'm realizing something new about our business, our space, and people who are just so kind, helpful with their time, right? I think the fact that I just hope that this learning does not stop, and I keep investing a lot of time in doing that. I think apart from this, on a personal end, I think I probably want to write more. I think I write decently good at like at LinkedIn and Twitter. Twitter is still hard to crack. LinkedIn, I think I've done that, but I want to focus more on writing also. I think learned a lot of things, and I think if that's of any value to any person, I think job's well done there. So that's what I'll be aiming to do this year.
What books or podcasts would you recommend to our listeners?
Lots of them. I think I'd probably create a thread around this. It's a good idea.
Give
So
us
I
your
think,
top three, maybe.
yeah. So, podcasts, I think I'm assuming a lot of your audience is startup founders, operators, and VCs. So there's this podcast called In Depth, which is by First Round Capital. In Depth is basically a podcast where CXOs and founders of scaled startups in the Valley come and talk about how they grew. So there's CMO of Canva talking about how Canva grew from where it was to, the scale, or someone talking, or the chief talent officer talking about building out culture and so on. And it's very authentic, fundamental advice. So I think that's great. I think 20 VC is also okay. Is also good. I go there mostly to understand a lot about some solid investors and great operators on how they think about building venture scalable businesses. I think on the book side, I love Shoe Dog. I love Working Backwards the Amazon Way. I think that's a fantastic book. Highly recommend. There's an exciting book called Essentialism. Someone who's probably tinkering around with focusing, right? How and our board member Dave from Lightspeed recommended it to me. I think that really left a mark, right? It gives you clarity that what's essential, what's not, and if you're able to segment that decision making, I think gives you a lot of inner clarity. So yeah, I think these are few things from my end.
Amazing. So this was an amazing chat, Anirudh, well worth the wait. And, when I talk to people like you, I mean, I get so inspired. So all the best for everything that you have coming up, and hopefully we can chat again soon.
Totally, Roshan. You're too kind with your words, and thank you so much for being a gracious host. Love the persistence, and thank you for this.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, then don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite platform and share this episode with all of your fellow startup operators. Also, follow the Startup Operator on LinkedIn and Twitter for more updates. Stay safe, take care, and see you soon on a brand new episode of the Startup Operator.